Well, I've talked to you about preparing your vehicle for doing the kinds of tours that we do, which are four-wheel drive tag-along tours. So I guess it's now time to talk about, what is a four-wheel drive tag-along tour? How do they work? And, what's our kind of touring philosophy? And I'll be the first to tell you this point, that we keep our camping really simple, we keep everything really simple because there are a couple of goals that we have. We want you to feel like you're escaping from the world that you're presently in. And so we go to destinations where there's no phone reception, there's no internet, and, we don't even bother with time of day. We operate our tour, apart from the very first day when you have to meet us at a specific time, or even sometimes the night before where there might be a briefing, we don't operate on time. We just operate on the rhythm of the day. And we like to get in to camp, well before sunset, so that we can set up camp and enjoy ourselves. So we have to leave camp in the morning, not too long after the sun gets up. However long it takes us to light a fire, cook our breakfast, eat our breakfast, pack up our camp, and do a pre-departure briefing. Whatever time that takes, it takes. So that's the first thing. So I'm going to kind of read a couple of items from my notes here, so excuse me if I look away from the camera. But, we do have this kind of touring philosophy, and I want to talk about that just a little bit. So we developed this formula over a very long time, and we find that it works. We attract the kind of client who's looking for this experience. If you're looking for the white linen tablecloth and you're looking for, everything catered for, that kind of experience, waiters or whatever else, I don't know. If you're looking for that kind of experience, we are not for you, okay? We have simple camps around a campfire that are self-drive, self-catered. So you cater for your own food and you drive your own vehicle. But we endeavour to create a fun, life-changing experience. Many people who come on our trips have long wanted to travel to these areas like the Simpson Desert, like the Kimberley, like the remote deserts of Western Australia on the Canning Stock route, like the massive Outback Tour of a Lifetime, which sees all of that wonderful South Australian desert area, starts in Longreach, finishes in Birdsville, does a big loop through the south and across the Simpson Desert. All of our tours are intended to be a life-changing experience, and they're for people who want to have that kind of experience. You should feel like you're travelling with a group of friends. It shouldn't feel like there's somebody who's the boss, unless, things start to get a little bit out of hand in terms of, vehicle issues or whatever, then I'm going to take charge, I've had mountain guides from Switzerland travel with me before, and one of those mountain guides, very experienced, came to me later and said, I'm taking your style of leadership back with me. Your lead from behind approach is something I think I can really use in my business. And that's the way I like to do it, okay? I don't like to be there, you camp there, you put your tent up there, you do this, that's not me, I do have rules about how we set up our camp. Those rules are designed to make the camp comfortable. So I get really picky about, making sure that we shelter from the wind. I get really picky about where the fire goes so people can enjoy the warmth without sitting in the smoke. I have rules about, where the firewood goes so that I don't have to get up in the middle of the night, step in a hot fireplace to get to the wood or try to find the kindling in amongst the big stuff, in the dark of dawn. Things like that are important. We do keep our camps simple though, and our goal is to have you experience these regions in all of their beauty, and that includes the really dark skies with the billions of stars. So we don't have massive great floodlights. We're not going to light up the campsite, so that it looks like daylight. We have just enough light to do what we need to do. That allows you to see the billions of stars. Our camps are also designed to take you back to a simpler way of life. My father and grandfather and uncles and great uncles did things like fencing cattle properties. My dad worked on a place that was 1 million acres, in stockman's camps. He taught me how to do this stuff. And it taught me how you can live in the bush for months and months and months at a time and be comfortable. And a lot of it comes down to keeping things simple. It also comes down to keeping your travel, your vehicle very light, or as light as you can. So, carrying all these things that you don't need is just silly. So, while you are free to have your gas stove and cook at your vehicle or do whatever it is that you want in terms of that, what we do is we have a central fire, and from that central fire, which is for our warmth and our enjoyment, we pull out blocks of coals and we put them under 2, usually sometimes 3, depending on how big your convoy is, barbecue plates. The little low ones that, fold up. And that's where most of the cooking is done by most of the guests. And the other items that I carry that you are free to use are cast iron camp ovens and other cooking utensils. And you can cook your meals in those in a similar way. And if you've never done it and don't know how, don't worry. I'm very experienced at it, and I'm happy to teach you how not to burn your meals, for instance. And every now and then I'll make a little treat myself, like a damper or something sweet. So that's how we do our cooking. And the best thing, as I've said numerous times, that you can have for this style of camping is a head torch. And I've put links numerous times to the kind of head torch that I like to use. It just makes the whole camping experience a whole lot better. While I'm talking about things to put on your head, absolutely bring a beanie. It gets cold out there, and keeping your head warm becomes really critical. So get yourself a beanie. Don't get the one with the pom-pom on the top. You can, but it might make the fitting of your head torch a little difficult. What else? You're kind of getting to experiencing the kind of life that the early explorers might have had, or the stockmen of my father's and grandfather's era might have had. We try to build that experience. Of course, we've got all the modern equipment, right? So it's not quite like they did, but it should hark back to those days. And that, in my view, is the best way to experience these places. So I like to say this is not 5-star camping. This is 1,000,000-star camping, because you can see all the stars. The other thing about our philosophy is it's your holiday, okay? It's not my holiday as the tour leader. So, I'm always trying to think of how I can make that experience something really special for you. I'm not trying to fit my own agenda. I've been out on the trails now for a very long time, and I've met plenty of tour operators. I've heard them yelling and screaming at their clients. I've heard them calling them all kinds of names, swearing at them. I've heard them having arguments where, for instance, people had said, hey, how about we go and check out XYZ Gorge while we're here? It's only 5 minutes away. Rant, rave, rant, rave, rant, rave. It's not on the itinerary, blah, blah, blah. I've seen all that. That's not how I operate. Small detours, for instance, by mutual consent of the group, are welcome. If we can accommodate them, we will. Sometimes we can't. What else? We're not in a rush. One of the really big secrets of outback touring is to plan your itinerary so that you have time for things to go wrong. Okay? So I have a very strict way of planning my itineraries that allow for us to end up traveling slower than we expected, to deal with bad weather, to deal with vehicle breakdowns, delaying us, to deal with all this kind of stuff. So, I've been in a situation where in a Canning Stock route where someone kept, we're about halfway through the Canning Stock route, and this person came up to me and said, "We are not going to arrive at our finish on time." This person had never travelled the Canning Stock route, ever. I had travelled it 9 times, and they were telling me that my trip was falling behind schedule. It was very difficult for me to kind of control myself, but I had to point out to them, look, I know what's ahead in terms of the track. I know how it improves. I know what the travel speeds are. I've allowed 3-4 extra days more than what we need, probably a bit more than that actually. We are going to, have a detour later in the tour if the time allows. There's lots of spare time available. Just because you feel like we're halfway in terms of distance, but we're not halfway in terms of time, does not mean we're running behind schedule. I go to a lot of trouble to plan my itinerary, so I was kind of a little bit upset that this person felt that they knew more than I did about how long it was going to take us to travel a route they'd never travelled. So, don't get carried away into thinking that, we're never going to make it or something like that. I know how long these trips take. With all of that said, I always say to my tour participants, never ever do things like book a flight at the end of your trip or some other time commitment. Allow yourself 2 days to get back into wherever it is that we're finishing the trip, longer than the itinerary says. That's because in really rare circumstances, you could find yourself delayed by weather, for instance, in the Simpson Desert or the Unadilla track or the Strzelecki track, places like that, Birdsville track, and the Kimberley, if it really rains, you're parked up for 4 days. So do allow 2 extra days. Now that can badly affect things like accommodation. If you've booked a cabin in Birdsville and you're now going to be 2 days later, there's a very real chance that your cabin won't be available. I can phone them using, the HF radio or the sat phone, depending on which one I'm carrying, but they have so many people, they have such a high demand for these things that you might miss out. But hey, that's kind of a minor price to pay when you kind of think of the places that you get to go and experiences that you get to have. And let me tell you, if you try to travel on the Unadilla track, the Strzelecki track, the Birdsville track, the Simpson Desert, after a lot of rain, you're going to have a whole lot worse experience than you're going to have if your accommodation isn't available for you when you arrive at the end. So bear all that in mind. We try to create a life-changing learning experience, not just a travel experience. I have many, many, many clients who've traveled with me 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And they're out there now. They send me photographs. They're out in the middle of nowhere, experiencing vehicle difficulties, repairing their vehicles, repairing their tyres, doing all the right stuff, travelling in the way that looks after their vehicles. They've learned how to do it by travelling with me. That's my goal. I don't want you to be forever, relying on other people to complete the journeys that you want to complete. Do things like the Simpson Desert, the Hay, the Canning, the Kimberley with me. Do a couple of trips and you're going to be quite experienced at travelling in remote areas. And you can start planning your own adventure trips. You know, your tour leaders, like myself, are very experienced and knowledgeable about all kinds of things. So, you know, we're not just, you know, driving across, for instance, the Simpson Desert. We're going to tell you a lot about the history. That includes some of the history of Aboriginal people of the region, where it's appropriate, where it's available. We use the actual people from the region to give you those experiences. We know a lot about the flora and the fauna, and we study all of that all the time, and we make sure our skills are, you know, up to par before we leave. We're also really experienced at mechanical issues. We're very experienced at recovery, safe recovery of vehicles should they get stuck. We're experienced at navigating the terrain should there be instances such as minor flooding. So, you know, that's really the kind of stuff you're paying for. You know, and we also carry long-range communications equipment. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to come to me and say, hey, I need to make a phone call home. On a lot of trips, I don't carry a sat phone. I carry HF radio. Now, while it is possible to make a phone call using my HF radio via the RadTal system, there's no guarantee that that can happen. It depends on radio propagation. So what we would like you to do is to tell your family that you're going to be out of reach for the period, for, you know, these periods of time. On a longer journey, it might be a day here, 2 days there, 3 days here, and you get into the major population centres, you've got mobile phone coverage, right? On a trip like the Simpson Desert, you might be out of reach for, you know, 3-4 days at a time. You can, you know, get phone reception maybe in 1 or 2 places. So we have a way for your family to get a message to you, and we supply that information in the information pack, and they can get that message to you. They can't speak to you directly. It just comes across the radio as a message. It's a message for my mobile HF number, you know, a message for mobile so-and-so, attention Juliet Parks, who's travelling with me. Your family wants you to know that X person had a baby yesterday. Okay? That's the kind of thing that comes across the HF radio. So, what do we do in an emergency? Well, we have a thing called a Spot GPS messenger that is pre-programmed to deliver the message via the emergency services people and via other people as well. So that's how we deal with those emergencies. While we're speaking about those emergencies, I want you to know that I have rescued 4 vehicles, at least 4 vehicles, from the Simpson Desert. They were about to abandon their trailers and drive back out. And we took them along with us, taught them how to tow their trailers through the desert. Something I don't recommend, by the way. I've been first on the scene at 3 major motor vehicle accidents, all of them fatalities, very traumatic experiences, not something I want to see, but it all comes down to people rushing. And also, you know, we've had to do major repairs to many vehicles out there because people are rushing. I've seen a convoy of 8 reduced to a convoy of 3 due to inexperience. These are the kinds of things that you're paying to avoid. Okay. So when we send out the information pack, there'll be lots of information. So between myself and Misty, there's a combined 42 years of experience travelling in these areas. We look after all the permits, we look after all the accommodation and all of the camping. Now, some of those permits can be quite expensive. So, you know, we provide all of those. We do carry extra water, but we ask you to carry a certain amount. Depends on the trip. It might be 20 litres per person, might be 30 litres per person. I'm going to talk later on about how you do things like carry water, carry petrol in another video. Lighting, we provide the lighting in the communal area. As I said, it's not heaps of lighting, It's enough to do the job because we want people to enjoy the darkness of the desert. You should be able to step away from the fire in the lit area and go, oh wow, look at that. If you can't see the large Magellanic Cloud or small Magellanic Cloud from outside the lit area, then I'm not doing my job. So, communal cooking facilities I've covered. Toilet facilities, I provide a toilet facility. It's by an improved national parks process. Yes, it's a pit in the ground, and there are ways that we manage that disposal of that, and you need to know the details of that. But we do provide a toilet. However, in the en route sections, let's say for instance you're driving from Alice Springs down to Chambers Pillar, and you have an urgent need to go, and we're not yet at Tichikala, you're going to have to go in the bush. So how do you do that? You have your shovel. Now you can use the big long shovel that you can mount on the side of your vehicle, or you can have a special little fold up one that you put inside a kit, especially your toilet kit. And in that kit you'll have your own toilet paper. We supply toilet paper for the main toilet, but you should have your own toilet paper because you might be miles back behind me. In your kit you'll have something like hand washing gel, or in your car you might have spray bottles to wash your hands with, and you'll have some ignition source like matches or a camp stove lighter, because I am absolutely sick to death of getting out into these regions and seeing toilet paper scattered all over the ground or sticking out of the ground. So you'll dig a hole, you'll do what you need to do, and you'll burn the toilet paper. Yes, it will burn. When it's all burned, you bury it. Okay? So that's the procedure for out in the bush. Now, Misty's provided some information as well, for the ladies. Lots of ladies like to wear, jeans or slacks or something like that. But Misty's preference is actually for a skirt or a dress. And, a big gypsy style kind of skirt can be very handy when you're going to the toilet in the bush, where there might not be a lot of bushes. Communications, we carry a HF radio. We talk to each other via UHF radio. Yes, you can use a handheld and you can get one off me, but you'll miss a lot of the communications. Lots of people ask me, what can I spend my money on? Modifications for my vehicle, should I upgrade the suspension, blah, 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 blah. Fit a UHF radio, seriously. That's really going to make a difference. If you're, half handy, you can do it yourself. Tools and tyre repair. I carry a comprehensive range of tools and tyre repair facilities, and while we have to practice it every year to make sure that we're good at it, both Misty and I are capable of removing your tyre from the vehicle's rim, repairing it, assuming it's not too badly damaged, and refitting it to the rim. So if it's a simple puncture, we'll be able to deal with that. You must carry 2 spare tyres. And I would recommend, even though it's getting much harder to do so, to carry a tube to fit in those tubeless tyres. Now that might sound really weird, but I can tell you now that fitting a tyre with a tube is a heck of a lot easier than refitting a tubeless tyre. Now I can do both, but you might find it very valuable if you go to your tyre place and say, look, I know it's getting hard to get tubes these days, but I want a tube that fits inside this tyre. Recovery. We carry lots of recovery equipment. Now, a winch isn't always necessary. In fact, some of my vehicles don't have winches, but we have ways of recovering you. That's the main thing to know about. So then let's get on to what should you bring. You should bring means to purchase the fuel you need, and you should bring a lovely, cheery attitude in response to the prices you see. Please don't complain to the people who are providing you with fuel about the price that they're charging you for it. It might be $3.20 a litre, I've seen it as high as $4 a litre at Gunawarchi, well 33 on the Canning Stock route. That's because it costs an absolute fortune to get it delivered, okay? And what's more, the people who supply it have to buy it in bulk. They have to buy like a truckload of it, keep it in their underground tanks for God knows how long, purchase it at the price that whatever it's, purchase that and then hold it there. Now, if you had to spend several $100,000 today and get your money back over a year or something like that, how would you feel about that? I think you'd want a little bit of return on your investment, wouldn't you? So bring a cheery attitude. The fuel costs what it costs. You need it. Okay. Water. I mentioned how much you need to carry. You can carry it in plastic containers, but I'll tell you what is really, really, really good if you've got a wagon is fit 1 or 2 water bladders, and you can contact me for information on where you can get those. You can get, 60 litre, 80 litre, 100 litre, 40 litre, whatever. Water bladders that you put in the footwell, where the passenger's feet go in the rear seat. Perfect place to carry water. Shoes, closed-in shoes, must. All right. Now you can have slip-on things for, as I mentioned in a previous video, when you get out of bed and have to go to the toilet. That's fine. Gloves, must bring a pair of heavy-duty gloves. Now, those yellowish-coloured riggers gloves that are available from the hardware stores are perfect for doing things like collecting firewood. Yes, you will have to help me collect firewood, and Misty, we can't do it by ourselves, and you get the enjoyment of the fire, so please help. So you'll need gloves. You will get splinters if you don't get gloves. Tents and bedding, my preferred way of sleeping is a swag. It's simple, quick, and I can give you all the clues you need to how you stay warm in a swag, how you stay safe in a swag. If you're getting a tent, I would not recommend that you use a tent that has, 5 or 6 of those fiberglass bendy pole things that every time you've got to put the tent up, you've got to slide them through the pockets. It gets frustrating. I don't know. Some people are happy doing it. For me, I seriously find it an absolute chore. My preference is a quick erect tent. So you can get them from Coleman, you can get them from Black Wolf, you can get, my preference, the Oztent RVs, although they're a very bulky package when they're packed up. They do fit on the roof rack. Alright, so if you need more advice on that, just get in and contact me. So around the way that we like to travel, as I said, we don't operate on time, but the basic rhythm works like this. I get up typically just as the first light appears on the horizon, and I will light a fire, and I'll have my little peaceful time by the fire with a cup of coffee, and slowly, bit by bit, people start to gather around as the fire is the only source of warmth. And they either cook their breakfast or make their breakfast at their cars, or they come over and do it at the fire. As soon as I'm ready, I begin to pack up my camp, and others begin to pack up their camp. When I'm fully packed up, the very last thing to happen is I will call out last calls for the toilet. And you'll all be camped, in a perimeter area around the central camping area, and I'll call that out and make sure that everybody knows that the toilet is about to come down. We'll pull the toilet down, we'll do the proper burn procedure to dispose of the toilet paper, and we will then have our morning briefing. And at that briefing, we'll review the day before, we'll discuss the coming day and the following day, and give you a bit of a clue what you can expect for the day. We'll go over the maps if you want to track where we've been and where we're going. We will then set off, and sometime later, as I said, we don't work on time, but it'll be around about 2 hours later, we will stop and we will break the journey by having our morning tea. I have quick boil billies, which are a lot of fun. Gather a bunch of twigs for me, bring them over. We'll light the billies. They'll be boiled in no time. Bring your cup, bring your tea bag or whatever you want. Bring a little snack, and we'll stand around and have a chat. And along the way, we might have stopped at various places, taken photographs, talked about plants or animals or history, geography, whatever. But we'll have a morning tea. We'll do the same thing again till lunchtime. We'll do the same thing again, and then hopefully we'll be in camp before we need to have an afternoon tea. We'll have gathered firewood on the way, or we'll gather it when we get to camp, and we'll set up our camp. We'll have our happy hour, and then we'll cook our meals, and then we'll sit around the fire and tell great big stories. Now, there's a lot of information in the information pack, and I'm going to talk about more and more of that as we go. One of the things I'm going to talk about is convoy procedures. Other things I'm going to talk about, how you, more about your setting up your camp and that kind of thing. But I will say to you, look, if you're thinking about coming on one of our trips, get in now, let me know, pay your deposit. If you cancel, 30 days out or whatever, you'll get your deposit back. If you cancel within 30 days, you will get partial or none. But if you're thinking about coming on these tours, get in and book, because I can tell you now, as soon as this COVID thing is over, people are going to be booking, and you might miss out. So, alright, that's a little bit of an intro about how we run our tours and so forth. Hope it's helpful for you, and I'm going to get into camping gear. I'm going to get into all kinds of things. If you've got anything you want me to cover, comment below this video and we'll cover off on those things. Whether it be details about a specific tour, whether it be details of a specific location, things that you want to know in terms of getting ready for one of our trips. Alright, catch you later. Bye.